Hello, this is a Knight K10 piano, 113 centimeters tall, made in 1977. It's just come into stock. We're just looking at it to see what sort of work might be necessary to improve it. There's a matching stool made by John Austin, which is one of the best stool makers, English firm, and you may find it's a little bit tall for the piano. Non-adjustables, you might like to take the leg off, some of the leg off a little bit, just to bring it down an inch or two, and then you can put cushions on if for different people. That's something we often suggest if you buy a non-adjustable piano stool. Good piano stool, wonderful stool, and good match for the piano. One feature on Knight pianos is if you lift the top lid, and then there's a stay here that keeps it up, so it deflects the sound forwards if you want it to be louder. Now the legroom on the piano is 62.5 centimetres from the floor. 61.5 is the average, as I've mentioned many times before, and the pedals are a bit on the high side, about 8 centimetres. We said that 7.5 is really the maximum. I've put some felt in the top of above this pedal here, and the dampers still work properly, and that reduces it to about 7.5, so that's encouraging. That means if your feet are angled too much, you see that one there on the left is higher up, then it's better for comfort, really, basically easier to use the pedal, and again it gives you a bit more legroom. Now, at the back of the Knight piano, we've mentioned before that it juts out a bit. You see this cast has been offset slightly. That's because the frame is so heavy on Knight pianos, extremely stable pianos, and a lot related to their frame. But this is a Knight piano next behind it here, and it doesn't have that jutting out. So that I'll show you the difference as well, the construction of that. So if you look in the top of Knight piano, it should have a continuous pressure bar here, and there's no bar brace, as Knight put it in their own literature, and we do attach that to our Knight pianos normally so you can read it. The bar brace stops the note, means the notes around this area are very even in terms of tone, whereas there's a slight difference very often when there's a bar brace here, as they call it. So here's the other Knight piano behind it, and you see here there's a gap here, and that shows you that that's what they call a brace bar, or bar brace, as Knight call it. But it's a well constructed piano, and you don't notice any difference. Knight being a very good firm, maybe a very slight difference, but very fastidious firm. This one's also got the plaque in it, which you often have, especially constructed to withstand severe extremes of heat, dryness and humidity in any part of the world. And indeed they did export a lot of pianos to different parts of the world, especially Commonwealth countries. Now the piano has been played a reasonable amount. If we look at the hammers, we can see hammer wear, and that's reasonable amounts of playing, but there's still plenty of hammer left. But it has made the hammers slightly softer in tone, so we can reface these to make it brighter again. But if you want a softer sounding piano, then obviously we leave it like it is. Just listen to the tone round here. I think it's probably as bright as we want it to be, really. Here's the other Knight in comparison. Now there's a couple of technical jobs. Because it has been played, it needs taking up the slack here. So if you look at, if we can focus properly here, so this is middle C. I've adjusted that one already, and this is C sharp, and you can see the bottom part of the action is moving before the hammer, and that slack needs taking up. And it's just a matter of taking the key out, and if you get the action out, it's easy to do this, really, and then just turning that capstan just to take up the slack. Now the other main adjustment is there's a slack in the keys here. Again, I've taken this up on C, and this is a tool actually used for let-offs normally. That's the button here. In fact, on this one it's a different style slightly. No, you can adjust this one with that. That's what this is, but it actually, because it's quite wide and it's made of one piece, it's a very sturdy one, and we can adjust the cricket bats with that. Now that's what we call a cricket bat, and this tool fits nicely over it. Normally the cricket bat adjuster is sideways on. This just comes from above. So normally it's sideways on here, and you turn it like that. But you have to get the keys out for this. This is for that. This is actually much more convenient. So just turning it slightly in that direction, and we just take up the slack. So what we've done there is, if you look at the key, you can see it's very slightly worn where it's been played a lot, so that will just turn this a little bit, and it'll wear in a different place on that felt and have, well, 30, 40, 50 years more wear in it. So now that key's tight, it's very important. It's best to do it without the action actually, because if they're too tight then they could stick, so that's very important. Another sticking point is the centre here, but these don't really need lubricating at all, I don't think. If we lift them up and they go back down, or possibly we might lubricate here, just because we do always tend to lubricate with dry lubricant there. So the lubricant we use is talc or Teflon powder, and we can put this in the hole in the front. I'm only on my own, I'm afraid, at the moment, so can't demonstrate. That goes right through there. We don't want to open up that hole at all. It's really important, but we want the key to be nice, not binding at the centre here. So looking at the assessment sheet, the main work here is tidying up, taking up the slack in capstans and front pins, and considering refacing and voicing. Well, we voice anyway, but if you want it to be less mellow, that's something we can do. Reducing the pedal height, so that's something we'd like to do as well by putting some felt in. The key weighting is slightly on the heavy side. Some pianos like Kawai, for instance, do set them at 56. We tend to set them about 47 to 52. Depends how heavy you want it, really, but for practicing, for study, really 47 to 52 we recommend of that, within that range. And you can see the sharps, particularly on nights, always tend to be a bit heavy, so we're going to try and reduce those. Notice here I mentioned dampers to top C. That's right up to here. There's a half damper there, and I'll just show you inside there. So this is like Steinways. Half damper there means it sort of phases in nicely with the next one. What they've done there is made the damper not damp on one of those three strings, so that's extremely fastidious construction. So that's a Knight K10, 13 centimetres tall, made in 1977. It's a bit out of tune at the moment. It's flat, and I would guess by the amount of flatness, and Knight's such a stable piano and doesn't tend to go flat as much as many others, so I would guess it's probably at least five, no, probably 10 years since it was last tuned. So you see how stable they are. It doesn't sound too badly out of tune with itself, but obviously we will pitch raise and fine tune it, and then before we sell it, and then we'll just check it over as well and do the adjustments. The case is almost immaculate. It's one of the most satisfying pianos to play a night, and indeed Steinways, when they wanted a small piano, I've mentioned before, in their showroom, the small Steinway upright is not one of my favourites. And when I went to Steinway Hall about 1980, they had Steinways, and then the only small uprights were Knights. And we've actually bought one recently that was sold by Steinways in Steinway Hall, and we've got the paperwork to show it. So that was just interesting, really, but just shows you that Knights really were up with the very best pianos. Thank you for listening. If you're interested, please do write to us, info@robertspianos.com.